it looks like everything is working in terms of our sound and in terms of the video. And I am going to do a couple of recipes from my book, Kitchen Divided, that one. And the reason I am doing this tonight is because we're going to do pretty much all live, raw food, and it's springtime, and it's that time of year when, you know, you're thinking about kind of cleaning out your diet, cleaning the house. It's actually for a few number of women this whole spring cleaning thing, so we will spring clean our bodies as well. Why not? So we're going to do Macho Gazpacho and build your own burrito. And the taco and burrito shells aren't raw, but everything else pretty much is, with a few exceptions. So I am doing this in the Google Plus Hangout, and the last time I did it, I wasn't able to upload it to YouTube. So we're trying something a little bit different this time, and hopefully it will work. I have no idea if we're even going to have anybody on the call, but I just thought I would kind of do it. Sometimes you can plan these in advance and then you get more people to join. This one is just kind of spontaneous because I have a really crazy busy travel schedule. And so I am just kind of throwing it together. But I have this wonderful food donation from Fresh Market, and I really don't want to lose that. And since they have been so supportive and really amazing in giving us this wonderful fresh food, it's really quite an opportunity, and I just don't want to lose that. So I am, as you may know, Ellen Jaffe Jones, the veg coach and the broccoli rep, because who else is? And Eat Vegan on $4 a Day is my first child, my first book that I ever wrote back in 2011. Actually, I started writing it in 2008, and it took that long to get it published. And then, of course, Kitchen Divided, and then Paleo Vegan, because as a runner myself, 7th in the US in my age group in the 1,500 meters, and I placed, as of last week, in an 87 5K races or longer for my age group. I started meeting some folks who were saying, oh yeah, I'm going paleo. And then I started meeting vegans who said they were going paleo. And I thought, you know what? I really need to kind of see if I can stop this floodgate, because paleo, which is this romantic idea of how our ancestors ate. Sorry, I got all this cord here that's just kind of hanging off. So, you know, how our ancestors ate before the start of agriculture, which some of the paleo folks say, oh, it's just so awful, agriculture. But, you know, the thinnest cultures in the world live on rice and beans and whole grains. So whatever, you know, these things come and go in fads. And I've been a vegan for the better part, more or less, for 35 years, as I've watched my mom and both sisters get breast cancer and a whole lot more. And for some of you who've been following weekly, you know that a couple of weeks ago, my oldest sister, the one who hadn't had breast cancer yet until fairly late in life, just died from complications of diabetes, which then led to heart disease, which then, because she was morbidly obese, she had routine herniated disc surgery and then got MRSA during that surgery. And I was amazed she even lived 6 years as she did past that, because she was paralyzed in a nursing home for the rest of her life. Very, very sad. And I have 3 daughters, so this work is really my legacy to them. So let's get started with the Macho Gazpacho on a cheery note and spring clean our bodies. And we will start with, let's see, first the cucumber. And of course, as you know, if you've been watching me do this, I do this quite live and on the spur of the moment. And I'm also trying to manage the camera as well as the food. Now, you know, I've got this little logo across, and some people have said, oh, well, we can't see the food. So we're going to make sure that we position it so that you can see the food. Now, the first thing we're going to add to our Macho Gazpacho is our cucumber. And most of this food is not only fresh as of this morning from the grocery store, but it is it's organic. So we're going to be doing this now. You can do this in a blender, or you can do gazpacho in a food processor. I'm just kind of more used to using my blenders And we're going to be using the Blendtec blender. I've never made gazpacho in that, so we're going to see how it goes. Now, in theory, if you have a blender, you shouldn't really need to cut all this stuff up, in theory. So we'll just take off our blender here and toss it in. And that was a pretty large size cucumber, but we'll go with the flow. And then next we're going to be adding a green, well, in theory, a green bell pepper quartered, but this red pepper was so big. And I also do work with a budget at Fresh Market. I like to try and keep my bill from going through the roof so that they will continue to donate to what I think is a worthy cause. So we're actually going to use just half of this red pepper because we're going to also use it in our next recipe. So basically what I just did was core the red pepper and seed it, take out all the seeds. You know, this stuff, it won't kill you if you eat it, but it's the pith, and some people find it to taste a little bitter. All right, so we're just going to cut these up in easy to digest for the blender here sizes. And then next we're going to a large ripe tomato. Okay, now let's talk tomatoes here. These are heirloom tomatoes. How cool is that? These are all different sizes, shapes, and colors, and really, really beautiful. And I am going to use, let's see, we'll use a couple of these big ones here. And we'll grab the paring knife. And, well, that is not the paring knife. I know you're here somewhere. There you are. All right, so what is an heirloom tomato? Well, basically, it means it hasn't been tampered with. It is what happens naturally in nature. I guess that's sort of a double positive. It can't be a negative. But so, you know, there's this big push now to get GMOs labeled, genetically modified organisms. That means that somebody did some forced breeding with the plants. And some people say, well, that's not a good thing. And so some states have tried to get genetically GMO labeling on products and get it on ballot initiatives, but companies like Monsanto have come in and said, oh no, we can't have that because that's their livelihood, that's their business. So yeah, it's all very controversial, but there are some stores that are being more proactive and labeling these products, whether they can just kind of as a group or say something kind of euphemistically like it is, oh, let's be sure to take off the label because that is not part of the food process here. So whether they say it's heirloom, which is kind of the code word for non-GMO, that is what some stores are doing. But as you can see, like this is, let's look at this tomato. Florida greenhouse, authentic family heirloom. So these are what most tomatoes look like, but even this is an heirloom also, and it's very beautiful, bright and red. But as you can see, I just want to show you some of these beautiful tomatoes because with the variegated colors that they have, now this one looks like, you know, it's not ripe because it's got all that green in it, but that's just the heirloom quality to it, the way the species, the way the variety of the species is colored. So no worries there. So we are going to, and because gazpacho is kind of really dependent on the tomatoes, I want to make sure that these tomatoes do taste good because otherwise that would just mess up the whole thing. And, you know, with a nice big container of gazpacho here, you don't want to serve that to guests. You do not want to serve that to guests who are expecting some delicious thing and then it's not. Okay, oops, we forgot the label there. Yes, you need to take off those labels. Now, some of these labels, they're attached with what they call food grade glue. You can certainly, you can see all that sticky stuff there. All right, I'm really digging into it with my fingernails, my hermetically clean fingernails. Yes, indeed. And taking that off of there. I want to make sure I do have the labels off of everything else here. I have been known to leave those on, and they're not real tasty either, just saying. All right, digging around in there. I think I'm also going to tear these up just a little bit. Oops, I should have worn my cooking apron, getting my most favorite shirt all messed up. All right, we might add some more tomatoes to this mix as we get going here. All right, now we are going to add some green onion. All right, so here's the deal. This is a green onion or a scallion. This looks like a green onion on steroids. But that is really what they call a sweet Vidalia onion. At least that's what the label is saying. And I've had Vidalia onions that look pretty traditional, like a regular onion. But I guess they come in different varieties. And I mean, this one to me looks more like a green onion than an actual round Vidalia onion. That's a red onion there, which we'll be using a little bit later. Now, just be sure you cut off anything that's green, or I mean, I'm sorry, anything that looks like it's kind of not fresh and kind of falling apart like that. You know, it's kind of brown, a little discolored there. Not too bad. And I'm actually going to use both of these in this recipe. So it's going to be pretty oniony. But that's okay. Spice up your life. And we'll cut off the bottom part there. Looking a little ragged. But most of this food that we have today is just incredibly, well, not most, all of it is incredibly fresh. And when it's organic, of course, it's going to be a little more susceptible to oxidation and spots on the apples kind of thing, but that is really okay. All right, so that is it for the onions. And then 2 tablespoons of parsley. So here we go. And I'm just going to grab what I think will be about 2 tablespoons of parsley. Maybe a little more, maybe a little less. And give it a nice chop chop. Now, if I were going to be a perfectionist, not that I am a perfectionist, but if you wanted to be a perfectionist, you would cut this on a dry cutting board as opposed to the wet one I have here. And again, because we are putting it in a blender, if you had a bigger blender, then it wouldn't be, or a bigger container really, it's not the blender itself, then it wouldn't be a problem getting all this stuff in there. Okay, so next we are going to add a clove of garlic. Now, you know, why does everything have to be so controversial? I always heard that garlic is wonderful. It's good for whatever ails you. And I saw somewhere online that somebody had an issue with garlic. So we're just going to use 1 clove. And, you know, I actually have taught some cooking classes where people have a sensitivity to it. But, you know, if you eat a lot of them, they'll keep the mosquitoes away, just saying. And when I taught cooking classes for the national nonprofit, the Cancer Project, we had no problem with talking about the wonderful cancer-fighting properties of garlic. And most of the research I've seen online says it is very good for trying to avoid cancer. So I'm not a doctor or dietitian. I am a certified personal trainer and a certified running coach as well. And I have just eaten this way, like I said, for the better part of 35 years. And I just keep running like a crazy woman. I do it because it's fun, both running and racing. So we're going to use actually two cloves in this because hope these all sink down because those were small. All right, the next ingredient for our Macho Gazpacho is 1 tablespoon of Worcestershire, vegan Worcestershire sauce. Now, a little story about vegan Worcestershire sauce. Fresh Market, which again generously donated the food for this, didn't have it. So I'm trying some other things that were in the Worcestershire department, and this one is Delmonico's Restaurant Classic 1837 steak sauce. Now, if you can get over the word steak sauce, everything in it is vegan. For some reason, Worcestershire sauce is often made with oysters. I don't know why they have to put oysters in Worcestershire sauce. Here's another one, HP sauce. Now, just to give you an idea, the ingredients: tomatoes, malt vinegar from barley, molasses, glucose, fructose syrup from wheat, spirit vinegar, sugar, dates, modified cornstarch, rye flour, salt, spices, natural flavor, tamarind extract. And this one has basically the same thing: tomato puree, molasses, apple cider vinegar, white, Chablis wine, well, a little different, salt, burgundy wine, ground mustard seed, cornstarch, soybean oil, tamarind. And when you open it, it really does, you can really smell the tamarind. So let's see, I'm just going to take my favorite smelling one here, and I think I just got something on my nose. All right, we're not going to move the camera up there. All right, so we'll use the original HP sauce, and the directions say 1 tablespoon of that. And again, this is just to give it a little zip and zap. And as you can see, and maybe you can't see, I'll just move this over. It really does look a lot like I want to say Worcestershire sauce, but really I used to sneak blackstrap molasses into my kids' pumpkin pie to give them the iron. A lot of times vegans will wonder, well, where do you get iron from? So there you go. Just find a way to put it into your recipes as much as possible. Okay, we're going to put this over here. All right, next ingredient is an 1/8 teaspoon of my favorite Tabasco sauce, okay? So no oysters in here. I don't know why they have to put oysters in so many things. I mean, they use oysters here in Tampa Bay to clean up the garbage on the bottom of the bay. So I'm not sure I'd want to be eating those things that are basically a vacuum cleaner for Tampa Bay. Go figure. Distilled vinegar, red pepper, and salt is all that is in Tabasco. And we will grab the measuring spoon for just a little bit of this, not too much. And again, if you don't want to use it, you certainly don't have to. 1/8 of a teaspoon just isn't a lot. Just enough to give it zip and zap. All right, moving right along, a pinch of ground pepper, which is right here. And you can always add more to this after it is blended. And then the final thing we're going to be adding is 8 cups low sodium. This one, I believe, is actually, yes, low sodium tomato juice or vegetable juice. And this is also organic, very important. And I'm going to turn the camera over this way. And we will move our blender right here. And grab the top. There we go. And make sure the blender is on. That's always good. And I'm just going to pulse this. I forgot the juice, didn't I? Great. After I talked about it there. Okay. Now, 8 cups. This is 32 ounces, so that's going to be 4 cups. If I tried to add 8 cups, it would overflow the boundaries here. So I'm just going to assume that all the vegetables I'm adding here are pretty much going to make its own vegetable juice of sorts. And like I said, you can do this in a blender, no problem. Let's go with the pulsing. The thing about doing it in a blender is that you can pulse it too much, and I just like to do it enough so that it gets the everything kind of ground up, but not too mushy. So let's keep going with it here. All right, now because I see that it already is getting kind of mushy, and I don't want to get too much more mush, I'm going to grab my little spatula and just push all these things down to make sure they get their fair share of mushiness. It's coming along. And you want to make sure on this that the top is pushed down. And I'm going to take this off and give the spoon a little rinse. And yeah, and see, this is not very blended up, and I like it that way. I really do. All right. Now, if you're a salt person, you might want some salt, but that is so sweet. Really, really love it. Now, you can also add an avocado to this, and that'll just be like something you can put on the top and then mix it in, because if you tried to mush an avocado in here, it would really get quite disgusting and mushy. So I just want to pour this up in a serving bowl so you can see the texture, and it's really quite chunky, and I like my gazpacho that way. Now you can also put things like coriander, you can put Italian flat parsley, you can put just all kinds of herbs into your gazpacho. So figure out a way that works for you to get your greens in here. Now I see that as I move around, the light really changes, and I think that just has to do with my hair is so dark. The lens tries to stop down to accommodate it. So whatever, apologies for that. All right, we're going to move on to our next recipe, which is out of Kitchen Divided. And this is the second recipe we'll be doing, the overstuffed tacos. Now, this is a very, very flexible recipe that I came up with when my kids were small, because they were finicky eaters, as a lot of kids are. And so what you do with this is you just get a lot of bowls or a big plate and put lots of these things on the plate and just let the kids kind of pile in the food. So and you know, it doesn't have to become a battle. That's the really big important part of this, is that the kitchen should not be a battleground. There are enough battlegrounds out there. So allowing the kids to put their hands into the food or spoon it out, however you do that in your house, it's all good. And you know, they get control over their food. And so often kids just don't have much control over anything in their lives. So we're going to start out first. Let me move the gazpacho and the ingredients for the gazpacho away. We are going to start with an avocado, and I just realized I forgot the refried beans, and my long microphone cord stretches all the way over to the pantry, which you can't see, but I'm coming back. So here it is. The pinto beans, refried, organic. And this will be kind of the glue or the paste that we use for the tacos. And, you know, these, you can use soft tacos, you can use hard tacos, you can use burrito shells, whatever floats your boat. Let the kids have a choice, and just make it really easy on yourself and everybody. All right, let's get a big plate out here. Now, I just wanted to show you some of the kinds of lettuces, too. You can add, this is another way to sneak in greens, especially for the kidlings, is to, let's grab one of our taco shells here. And we are using for the taco shells, these are Garden of Eaton's yellow tacos, and they put a little divider so they don't get crunched and crushed, which is a nice thing. So we will first start by putting the refried beans. And I used to make this or some variation of this all the time for my kids. And again, you can serve it up in a bowl. You don't have to be spooning it out of the can like I'm doing, but we're just showing you. You don't want to put a whole lot in there because we're going to be cramming it with other things as well. All right. Next, we're going to add a ripe avocado. Okay, so this is my avocado rant. I went to another store in our town, a big store, because I like avocados and I wanted to have some 3 days ago. And I was feeling them, and you can kind of tell if an avocado is ripe by touch. You can also tell by color. So this one, for example, store, and you can see it looks pretty ripe, pretty brown, and they actually do change colors. And I had a real extensive conversation today with the store, with Fresh Market, about why do stores, and they don't, put out avocados that are hard as a rock. When I cut into this thing 3 days ago, oh my goodness, you could not, it was like impossible to cut. It was the hardest avocado. And I never take food back, but I actually took the other ones back, and I just saved one to show you. But this one, depending which way you're looking, right, left. Anyway, this one is really soft to the touch, and it is almost completely brown. So it just feels different for sure. And so the store told me, Fresh Market said, some stores, they get the whole shipment and they're hard and they don't hold them back, which is really what they should do. But she said, we have to put out what we put out. And unfortunately, when I told her about this, she said, you're the second person who's come in this morning and said that the avocados at that other store were really hard, but they make sure that theirs are nice and soft. So that is my rant on avocados. And we're going to be cutting it in half. And this really is soft. Now, the other part is that it may be too ripe. And you can certainly let them sit out a couple days. And so I hope you saw that. Maybe you didn't. But we just twist it like that. And one of the reasons I buy a fair number of avocados is because they, you never know if you're going to get one that is past its prime. So I guess that one, as I think about it in retrospect, really was kind of over soft. So we're cutting this one, giving it a twist, and that one looks just perfect. So to get the seed out, you're going to take the knife and give it a hard whack. And one more piece of food for the keyboard. And in an ideal world, it should just pop out like that, which it did. It doesn't always happen. Sometimes I'm really whacking it a lot of times. All right, so we toss our seed, and we're gonna, let's go back to the cutting board here. We're going to give it a nice quarter slice. Now you can also put a spoon in, but I can kind of tell just because this is a perfect avocado. See how easily that skin is coming off? Just really nice. And I can tell this is going to be a yummy one. And you don't, when it's this perfectly ripe, the skin practically falls off in your hand, and that's pretty cool. All right, we have a little stubborn spot here. And away you go. And we'll keep these actually until we get the other ingredients in from the recipe. So the next one is going to be some lettuce and then baby salad greens. Now we have just tons of lettuce to show you. This is the spring mix, and this is loose. Now some people say you should buy nothing in a bag or a box. I don't know. It does seem to be a little fresher. And of course, you can buy the same thing like in these containers as well. And I think they pack them with some kind of gas, maybe nitrogen, that really makes it quite easy for you to have them on the shelf for an extended period of time. So back to our avocado, we'll get just a piece of romaine, maybe tear it in a few pieces and just stuff it in there. Now you can see that pretty much takes up the whole thing. All right, and then we'll add our slice of avocado. And we're just building it as we go here. And then the next thing for the salad greens over here, we'll just stuff those in if we can find a little place here. And I'm also going to get out the whole wheat burritos, tortillas. So that's what these are. And we'll get one of these going because I think we're going to run out of room real quickly with our taco there. But again, kids like variety, so having all these available, and it's so cheap, really incredibly cheap to eat this way. So you can afford to have a lot of variety, and that's what's wonderful. And there's so many different colors of the rainbow to appeal to people. And we're going to add a little bit of red onion next. Oops, we got some avocado there. Sure, why not? And I'm just going to cut some real thin slices here because you don't want to overpower the taco. If there's just too much, then for sure the kids are not going to like it. So just, you know, a couple very thin slices, and you can cut those up more if you like. And then we are going to have some mango as well. So we'll just cut, boy, that onion is, just that little cutting of it is making the eyes water. And of course, you know, the secret on to avoid crying when you cut an onion, turn some water on, preferably a lot sooner than I just did, because that is coming through, and I am just getting so teary-eyed. Okay, let's go back to the cutting board to cut the mango. Now they make fancy mango cutters, but oops, now and the mango cutters cut around the seed. So what we're doing here is just the porcupine cut, and we are doing a crisscross pattern. Be careful, don't puncture the back like I just did, but we're going to press it there and put it out. And you know, this mango is pretty ripe. It's it could probably have stood on the tree another day or two. We actually have a mango tree, and the mangoes are already looking like they want to drop, and some of them are. We haven't eaten any yet, but it smells really nice, so I think it is. Yeah, yeah, oh yeah. It's just beginning to be mango season here in Florida. I'm not sure where these are from, but I think it was organic. And I guess a little word about picking a ripe mango. So you just want to make sure that it's got a pretty big section of red on it and doesn't have very much green. So as you can see, what's left of that was fairly ripe. It is a little bit of an art trying to find ripe mangoes and ripe avocados, but you just have to be kind of picky about it and stick to your guns about if you want it to be something that is good enough for the whole family to eat. Okay, this is a salsa here, and this is an interesting salsa, green chili salsa. This is the only one I could find that was mild. Now, some of us in our younger age used to be able to handle the hotter spice things, and I always thought that green chilies were pretty spicy, but apparently not. So we're just going to grab a taste of, I always like to taste things I've never tasted before just before I put it in a recipe. Make sure. Good, good. All right, so that really is mild. I don't know how they do that, but awesome. All right, so we are going to add a little bit of the salsa to our soft tacos and some mango slices back to the drawing board here. And just some nice slices with our sharp ceramic knives. And again, letting the kids participate in this is really, really key. All right. The other thing we're going to add, kids love olives. Now, you can cheap out and get the canned olives, but kids love to put olives on everything. And when my kids were young, I don't know, I guess I'm just going to have to do this because it's what they did. They would put them on their fingers like that. And I'm not going to do this with all 5 of my fingers, but you know, they would just play these kinds of games. And of course, they would wash their hands before coming to the table. But olives are just a lot of fun, and usually they're salty, so the kids are going to like that. And it's just a fun thing to put on your taco. All right, so that is the olive section, and I am going to wipe my hands with that. And we just had an egret land outside. Oh my goodness, that is like the largest egret I have seen. I'm sorry. Wait, let's see if you can see this here. I try not to knock everything over. Let's see. I don't know if that's going to show. Yeah. If I could zoom in, I would be able to show you better, but there's too much dark. Anyway, well, that was kind of a little interesting sideshow. All right, so then the other thing with the avocados, you know, you can take a lemon and cut it and just sort of drizzle it over the avocado so they don't turn brown. Anytime really you're using greens, that's a good thing to do, especially the herbs. So we have lots of different lettuces here tonight. This is the red leaf lettuce, and it's actually organic, as well as they also call this Boston red leaf lettuce. It's not just, there's other just plain red leaf lettuce, but so you can kind of make that as a nice little cover for the tacos. And then we also have the spring mix, which is really nice, as well as the romaine, which comes in the container. So use your choices of lettuces, whatever floats your boat. Oh, we also have, almost forgot this, a little bit of cilantro. Now, cilantro looks a lot like Italian parsley, but it isn't. And this will give the dish a nice, nice little spicy tang to it, and really enhances the salsa. Most salsa has cilantro in it, but by the time it's been sitting on a shelf for a lot of weeks, it may not have the kind of spiciness you want and zip that you want. So let's add a little bit of tomato to this as well for our final topping. And just again, remembering to take off those labels, very important. So we're just gonna put this as a little decoration and encourage, well, that's one for the dog. Encourage the kids with safe knives to participate in the cutting. You can supervise depending on the age, and there you go. So that is our overstuffed soft taco. Fold it up like that. Oh, just try and get it in your mouth. Let's see if we can work on this here. Mm-mm-mm. Oh, yeah. Pretty good. Oh, one more thing. Sprouts. The recipe calls for alfalfa sprouts, but the broccoli sprouts actually looked fresher, and I think they had a later expiration date on here than the alfalfa sprouts. So yeah, May 17th. That's a long way out. So when you're checking for sprouts, you just want to make sure that they look like they were picked yesterday and that there's no brown or disgusting stuff on the bottom. And you'll just grab a little chunk of that, throw it on top, and then you've got this wonderful live food, right? All right, so traditional part of our Cooking with a Veg Coach is dessert. And there are always different things you can do for dessert, but in the springtime, like if you don't have a lot of time and you just want to eat real light, dates are always a good way to go. But we have different kinds of dates I wanted to show you. If I can find them. It's like when I start doing this, everything gets buried here. But this is just a Deglet Noor date. Very full of fiber, iron. Again, vegans always ask, where can you get iron? Here we go. Then there are, and I'll compare these. This is a medjool date, bigger, moister. Always watch out for pits. You never know when you'll get one of those. So just by comparison. So this is the medjool, really moist. The Deglet is not all that dried out either, but for some reason, the medjools are really plump and juicy. And also have a pit. So make sure you just squeeze it out. I've just always liked medjool better. But the other cool thing, I mean, that's a really fast dessert, and you can stick those, roll them around in nuts, chopped nuts of your choosing. You can also get these. Now, these are date rolls, and a little cheaper if you want to do this yourself, but there are all kinds of variations of these. They roll them in coconut. My mother told me not to talk and eat at the same time, but we have to do that. So Lara bars pretty much are just dates and nuts and then some kind of fruit flavor, and I'm a big fan of Lara bars, especially on the run. I haven't tasted these yet, which I'm about to do to see how they compare. Now, again, that pretty much tastes just like the medjool date, but it's a little more processed. I mean, they had to roll it to get to that point, but I don't think there's anything added to it. So that is your selection for dessert. So I hope that's been helpful in getting you motivated to spring into summer and find something that works for you. All right. Well, you can find me in my books at vegcoach.com and always here on YouTube. If you have any questions, just comment or ask below, and I'm happy to answer your questions. I did just want to check. All right. I'm just checking some of the other things here to see if anything came in while we were doing this. So I thank you for joining. I'm Ellen Jaffe Jones, the Veg Coach and the Broccoli Rep, because who else is? And I'll see you later. Gotta run.